Hare Krishna, Amarendra Prabhu, and all the assembled devotees. Dandavat pranams to you all.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Yashodadala Prabhu.
Vijay Krishna Prabhu, 2 a.m. in Portugal. You're up and bright and ready.
No, not 2 a.m. In Portugal is 1 a.m.
Oh, 1 a.m. Okay.
Yes, just Lisbon 1 a.m. Azores Archipelago midnight.
Ah, got it.
Yes, because Azores Archipelago means 1 hour less than in Lisbon.
Got it. All right. So it is 8 p.m. Eastern Time, USA now. And let's begin. We have quite a few devotees already on Zoom as well as on YouTube. Today, our usual host, Madan Gopal Prabhu, is not able to join because the power is out in his neighborhood. We've had a big storm in New Jersey and a lot of devotees have lost power that I know of. So sadly, he's not able to be with us. He will listen to the recording later. So let me welcome His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. He is also on this Sangha. He's the foundation of this Sangha and speaks Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So he's here, and welcome to everyone else who's here. I'm not going to take up too long. Everyone knows who Amarendra Prabhu is. Besides being one of our dearest friends, he's also at such a young age, he's just in his 20s, at such a young age, already been speaking Krishna Katha for years and years and years. He began when he was a little boy, actually. And his Katha is infused with sweetness. He has a lot of material qualifications as well, multiple degrees, including an MBA and degrees in science and engineering and so on. But that is not why we are here to hear from him. He loves to read, hear, and speak Krishna Katha, which is why we've invited him to this Sangha. And I'm very excited about tonight's talk in particular, because it's on a very special verse that he has not spoken on before, it seems. So without any further ado, Amarendra Prabhu, the microphone is yours. Please enlighten us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, dear Yashodadala Prabhu, for kindly hosting this call. And thank you for having me here. First of all, I want to start by offering my obeisances to His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, who is the backbone of this Sangha and who's inspiring all of us by his practice and by his guidance, spiritual guidance. Thank you, Maharaj, for your auspicious presence. And I want to offer my obeisance. Yes, Maharaj?
Your kindness.
I want to offer my obeisances to all the wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who have assembled here this evening to bless me with their auspicious presence. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtate Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. So, dear devotees, this evening we will be seeing a very, very beautiful verse by Sri Bilva Mangala Thakur. Sri Bilva Mangala Thakur has composed quite a lot of beautiful, sweet verses glorifying Sri Krishna. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has quoted quite a lot of them in his Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada has also written a very beautiful purport in the glorification of Bilva Mangala Thakur's work. And these verses are compiled together in a very beautiful book called as Krishna Karanamrita. Now, Krishna Karanamrita is quite a high-end Rasik literature. It talks about the rasa of Vrindavana, the sweet transcendental mellow, glorifying Sri Krishna with his beautiful loving associates in Vrindavan. However, we are not going to touch the whole book today because it is impossible as far as time is concerned, and even as far as spiritual capability is concerned. But we are just going to take one verse out of this very beautiful book and discuss this evening, because we want to whet our appetite for the upcoming Janmashtami Mahamahotsav, the celebration of Krishna's holy appearance. Now, the Chaitanya Charitamrita is written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami quotes from Bilvamangala Thakur's Krishna Karanamrita. And interestingly enough, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is also one of the prominent commentators to Bilvamangala Thakur's Krishna Karanamrita. So he takes verses from Krishna Karanamrita in his Chaitanya Charitamrita, yet at the same time, he's one of the prominent commentators on Bilvamangala Thakur's Sanskrit work. Some of the famous verses you may have heard is Madhuram Madhuram Vapurasya Vibho, Madhuram Madhuram Vadanam Madhuram, Madhugandhi Mridusmita Metadaho, Madhuram 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 Madhuram. Madhuram means sweet. It's quite a sweet verse. So there in that verse comes from Krishna Karanamrita, which is quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That means that Krishna's form is certainly very sweet, and on that form Krishna's face is sweeter, and on that face Krishna's honey-laden, sweet, fragrant, aromatic, soft smile is the sweetest, because it attracts a host of bumblebees because they're confused, because Krishna's face is like a lotus and there's honey through his smile. So they're all attracted. So that verse comes from the Chaitanya Charitamrita again. Then there's another verse which is quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is He Deva, He Daita, He Bhuvanaika Bandho, He Krishna, He Chapala, He Karunaika Sindho, He Natha, He Ramana, He Nayana Bhirama, Ha Ha Kadanu Bhavitasi Padam Drishor. Now, every time you hear the word He, that means, oh, He in Sanskrit means it's an invocation. You call out to Krishna. So there are 9 names of Krishna quoted in the same verse. And then finally, after calling out to Krishna in invocation and addressing Krishna, Bilvamangala Thakur, who is Netrahin, which means he's devoid of vision. You may have all heard of the story of Bilvamangala Thakur, where he popped. Yes, he popped his eyes out because he wanted to offer them to Krishna. And why that is so, I will let you research and find out. There's a very beautiful story why Bilvamangala Thakur offered his eyes to Krishna. But after offering his eyes to Krishna in his Krishna Karanamrita, he says, ha ha. Now in English, ha ha means laughter. But in Sanskrit, ha ha is the exact opposite. Alas, alas. Kadanu bhavitasi padam drishorme. Oh, when will that day be mine? When Krishna, I can have a glance. I can have merciful glance from your side. And I will be benedicted with auspicious vision, where I can hold your form with the pot of my eyes. So there are many beautiful verses like this from the Krishna Karanamrita, which Kaviraj Goswami quotes. So we're going to take one such verse from the Krishna Karanamrita this evening. Just a quick point before we get started. It's going to be a fast moving class because, as we know, it's a weekday. So we have a start time and an end time. And the second point is it's going to be a technical class because it's a high-end work with a lot of Sanskrit complexity, and the word usages are very intricate. So I request, if you would feel inspired, if you want to take down a few points that would help you carry a few jewels from this verse of Bilvamangala Thakur, that will certainly help. So I'll request our Yashoda Dulal Prabhu to kindly share the screen and have the verse put up so that we all can glance at the verse. And this verse will be there throughout on the screen as we discuss. So that's the verse with its, that's in Sanskrit, of course, with very beautiful diacritics, so that in English, so that we all can read it very well. So this is a very beautiful verse composed in a meter called as Shardula Vikridita Chanda. Now, Shardula Vikridita Chanda is the meter which is very similar to Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, the first verse of the Shikshashtakam. Or another example would be the 8 verses of the Shat Goswami Ashtakam, which glorifies the 6 Goswamis. So I'd like to read it in a couple of melodies so that we can also mark it as a memorization verse. It's kind of a homework that we all can put into our time and energy into. Before Janmashtami, we can try to read it every day so that we can offer our hearts in the direction of this verse. Asti swastaruni karagra vigalat kalpa prasonaplatam vastu prastuta venunada lahari nirvana nirvyakulam srasta niruddhani vivilasat gopi sahasravritam hastanyastanapavargamakhilo daram Kishore-akriti. That's one way of chanting it. Another alternative. Asti swastaruni karagra vigalat kalpa prasuna plutam vastu prastuta venunada lahari nirvana nirvyakulam srasta niruddhani vivilasat gopi sahasravritam hastanyastanapavargamakhilo daram Kishore-akriti. So in this way, there are different ways you can chant this verse. Asti swastaruni karagra vigalat kalpa prasona plutam vastu prastuta venunada lahari nirvana nirvyakulam srasta niruddhani vivilasat gopi sahasravritam hastanyastanapavargamakhilo daram Kishore-akriti. So this is what the verse means. Now, I'll request our Yashoda Dulal Prabhu if he can pull up the English also, just so that we can read it and we know what the English means. Then we'll go word by word in our analysis of this beautiful verse. Okay, from Bilva Mangala Thakur's Krishna Karnamrita, this is the translation. There is an entity who has the appearance of an adolescent boy and who's being inundated with the desire tree flowers falling from the fingertips of the damsels of heaven. That boy is completely carefree, situated in transcendental beatitude, as he sends forth waves of sound from his famed flute. He is encircled by thousands of effulgent milkmaids whose garments are becoming loose again and again from their extreme pleasure at hearing the flute, and who are trying to hold them up. That adolescent boy, the pinnacle of munificence, places liberation from birth and death into the hands of his surrendered devotees. Thank you, Prabhu. Let's get back to the Sanskrit verse for this discussion. Okay, so now I hope everyone has their pen and paper ready, just so that we can write the words. I will be reading a bit of Sanskrit, so bear with me. Don't feel overwhelmed, because the Sanskrit presence is inevitable here. We find in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya-lila chapter 9, text 305 to 309, where Kaviraj Goswami speaks about this book, the Krishna Karnamrita. To quote, the Brahmana community there was composed of pure devotees. They regularly studied a book entitled Krishna Karnamrita, which was composed by Bilva Mangala Thakur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to hear the book Krishna Karnamrita, and with great eagerness he had copied and took it with him. There is no comparison to the Krishna Karnamrita within the three worlds. By studying this book, one is elevated to the knowledge of pure devotional service to Krishna. One who constantly reads the Krishna Karnamrita can fully understand the beauty and melodious taste of the pastimes of Lord Krishna. The Brahma Samhita and Krishna Karnamrita were two books that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered to be most valuable jewels. Therefore, he took them with him on his return trip. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, this book was composed by Bilva Mangala Thakur in 112 verses. There are 2 or 3 other books bearing the same name, and there are also 2 commentaries on Bilva Mangala Thakur's book. One commentary was written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and the other by Chaitanya Das Goswami. In addition to this, there is one added commentary by Gopal Bhatta Goswami also on the same book. Let's begin. Bilva Mangala Thakur was on his way to Vrindavan, and he was asked this question: why are you going to Vrindavan? What is the purpose of your visit to Vrindavan? So our Bilva Mangala Thakur says only one thing. He says, Vastu Asti. You can see the first word in the second line is Vastu. And the first word of the first line is Asti. So we read them together. Vastu Asti. Asti means there is, and Vastu means substance. There is a specific substance, there's a specific person, there's a specific phenomenon in Vrindavan. And what that phenomenon, what that beautiful threefold bending form of Krishna is, that is what is seen throughout this verse. So let's focus on this word Vastu Asti. Our Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the commentary to this verse mentions, Yadva achadayati vyapnoti sarvam etena purnam vyasyanti swarupatah rasa chamatkaratah prabhati shayacha stamba upalakshita satvika mahabhava alingitaha sarvam evam bhavanti yasmat itiva vasa nivase vasa achadane vasu sthambe dhatavah vastu paramartha bhutam tapatrayon moolanat iti. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says the word Vastu here, it means 5 things. There are 5 meanings to the word Vastu. The first meaning of the word Vastu is Vasati iti Vastu. He who lives. The word Vasa in Sanskrit means to live, to reside. So Vasati iti Vastu. He who resides is Vastu. So now the question is, where does Krishna reside? The answer is, he resides in the heart of his pure devotees. Well, he resides in everybody's heart, but he's actively jumping in joy in the heart of his pure devotees. Tumara hridaye sada govinda vishram. Krishna is sleeping peacefully in the hearts of his pure devotees. Why? Because he knows that they will never disturb him with material desires. A conditioned soul, in his heart also Krishna is present, but he cannot rest. Why? Because the conditioned soul always tries to wake Krishna up for the fulfillment of his desires. And we don't like to be woken up when we are asleep. But pure devotees have nothing to ask from Krishna. So therefore, Tumara hridaye sada govinda vishram. Krishna, in your dear Krishna, you always reside in the heart of your pure devotees. In this regard, there is a very, very beautiful verse, and it is, sadly, it's anonymous. We don't know to trace back to who is the poet, who is the composer of this verse. And the verse says, Gopalangana kardame viharase vipradhvare lajjase brushe ghoshata hunkrite stutishataihi maunam vidatse satam dasyam gokula sundarishu kurushe swamyam nadantatmasu nyatam krishna tavangri pankaja yugam premaika labhyam param. The devotee is telling Krishna something very interesting. He says, Krishna, I have seen something very interesting in your personality. What is that thing? Vipradhvare lajjase. When Brahmanas offer yajnas and try to please and try to call out to you, you never speak a word to them. Why? Because you're so humble. When they glorify you with their Vedic chants and the Vedic yajnas, lajjase, you shy away and you don't appear. It's an interesting way of saying that Krishna is not bound by rules. Sakale jagate more kare vidhi bhakti brajabhav paite nahi shakti. Chaitanya Charitamrita says Krishna can be bound only by the ropes of love, not by the rules of do's and don'ts. So the Brahmanas, who may not have love in their heart, but just following the do's and don'ts, they're glorifying Krishna so much that Krishna feels shy and he doesn't appear there. So that's an indirect poetic way of saying Krishna is not impressed by their offering of yajnas. But where does Krishna appear happily? Gopalangana kardame viharase. He's busy rolling in the backyard mud of the Gopas and the Gopis. The Gopas and the Gopis love Krishna so much that Krishna is busy rolling in the mud and in the fresh dust and the wet mud of Vrindavan in the backyard of the house of the Gopas and the Gopis. They love Krishna so much. They may not know the mantras and the tantras and the yantras and the mudras, all the do's and don'ts, but they have offered their body, mind, and words to Krishna. So Krishna is not appearing in front of the Brahmanas who are offering meticulously all the mantras, but Krishna is busy rolling in the wet mud in the backyard of the Gopas and the Gopis. This is line number 1. Line number 2, oh Krishna, it's interesting that when a cow in Vrindavan, Brushe Ghoshata Hunkrute, when a cow in Vrindavan just says, oh, at that time, you walk up to the cow and you speak 100 times. What happened? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Is the rope very tight on you? Do you want to bathe? Do you feel very hot? Do you feel very cold? Do you want to play with me? All that the cow does is, oh, and Krishna speaks 100 times. But the same thing, Stuti Shataihi Maunam Vidatse Satam. When yogis are sitting lifetimes in meditation, Krishna does not speak a word to them. This is the power of love. Line number 3. Dasyam Gokula Sundari Shukurushe Swamyam Nadantatmasu. When the gopis, motherly gopis, love Krishna so much, Krishna is ready to become their servant. And he carries pots of milk and buttermilk and yogurt from one place to another. And sometimes he carries mud also on his head as service to the motherly gopis, which means out of love, he's ready to humble himself as a servant to the motherly gopis. But Swamyam Nadantatmasu, the self-controlled sages try to call out to Krishna as their master, but Krishna takes lifetimes to accept them as his servants. So how interesting is it? He doesn't accept the words of the Brahmanas so easily, but he's busy rolling in the backyard of the Gopas and the Gopis. Second point, he keeps quiet in front of the yogis, but he's ready to speak 100 times in front of the cows in Vrindavan. Point number 3, he's not ready to accept the sages as his servant very easily, but he is ready to become the servant of the Gopas and the Gopis in Vrindavan. The Acharya says, Nyatam Krishna Tavangri Pankaja Yugam. Krishna, I have understood one thing for sure, that your lotus feet move only in that direction where there is pure love. Therefore, point number 1, 2, Vastu Asti. Where does Krishna live? Krishna lives only in the heart of pure devotees who love him unconditionally. This is point number 1. Point number 2 to the meaning of Vastu Asti. Second meaning is, where does he live? Well, he lives in every atom. Everything lives in him and he lives in everything. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yoman Pashyati Sarvatra Sarvam Cha Mahi Pashyati. That he who sees everything in me and me in everything, such a person is intelligent. But however, that is not the meaning that we are talking about. That's the secondary meaning. The primary meaning of Vastu Asti, where does he live? He lives in the hearts of his pure devotees. Fourth point of the meaning of the word Vastu Asti is Vasu Sthambe Dhatavaha, which means Krishna has a quality. By the power of his beauty, by the power of his flute sound, he can make moving into non-moving, non-moving into moving. How does that happen? The Yamuna, which is moving in the right direction, hearing Krishna's flute sound, starts moving in the wrong direction, upward. The moon who is moving stops moving, hearing Krishna's flute sound. Those who are moving in Vrindavan look at Krishna and they are stunned and they stop moving. So the moving become non-moving. The cows also. Gavascha Krishna Mukhanirgita Venu Geetam. The cows are busy eating and chewing on grass, and suddenly they see Krishna and they hear Krishna's flute sound. Now they forget what has to be done with the grass in the mouth. They forget what they have to do. The mouth grass coordination is lost. So they have the grass in their mouth and they have no clue what to do with it. And on the other hand, because of seeing Krishna's beautiful form and hearing Krishna's beautiful flute sound, milk is being poured down from their udder. And the calf doesn't even have to suck. The milk is just pouring down as if the udder is a rain cloud. And the calf is trying to fill its mouth with milk, and the milk is slipping down the mouth. Why? Because the calf forgets what to do with that milk. The mouth of the calf is full, but its heart and its ears by the flute sound are overfull. This is the nature of Krishna's beauty and Krishna's flute sound in Braja. It makes moving into non-moving. The deer and the peacocks and the animals, the cows and the calves, they all look like painted pictures, completely stunned. This is why our Govardhan, who's actually a person, is in the form of rocks. Why? Because one of the Ashtasattvic Vikar, one of the symptoms of ecstasy is Stamba Bhav, which means to be completely stunned. And Giriraj is so stunned, hearing Krishna's flute sound and seeing Krishna's beauty and meditating on Krishna's sweetness, that every aspect of Krishna's personality has become as lifeless and as inert and motionless like rocks of a mountain. This is why Govardhan, although he looks like a rock, is actually the greatest devotee. Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparasha Pramoda Kantaya Madrirabala Haridasa Varya. So point number 1, we said about Vastu Asti. Who is there in Vrindavan? That Krishna, Vasati iti Vastu, who lives in the hearts of the pure devotees. Second meaning, that Krishna who lives in every atom. Third meaning, that Krishna in whom everything resides. Interesting. When Nanda and Yashoda were in separation from Krishna, Uddhava had come to Vrindavan, and he thought he can, on the power of what he had learned from his guru Brihaspati, he thought he could convince Krishna's parents. And he went and told Krishna's parents a few verses from Ishopanishad. So near yet so far. He's inside of everything, he's outside of everything. Your son is not your son. He's actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But actually, Uddhava was thinking he's going to pacify Nanda and Yashoda. But he ended up making the situation worse. Why? Because Nanda and Yashoda started crying more. And they held the hand of Uddhava and they said, oh, we thought we just lost our son. But now you're convincing us that he's God. That's increasing our agony because now we feel we have lost God. Imagine you walk down the street and you lose like $50. And you're looking around, where did I lose my $50? But then someone comes and tries to convince you, don't worry, that wasn't $50. That was only $50,000. The person's pain and grief in the heart increases multiple times. So Uddhava came to Vrindavan and he tried to use transcendental knowledge. But Vrindavan is a land which is filled with the waves of love, devotional service, that all the knowledge gets eclipsed. Aishwarya Jnanite Sab Jagata Mishrit, Aishwarya Shitila Prem Nahi Mora Prit. Krishna is saying, I don't like calculated devotion. That, oh, I am God, therefore you must give him some patrams and pushpams. He said, I will give you on the basis of your mood. I will reciprocate. But what really binds my heart is ropes of love, where there is no consideration of whether I am God or I am not God. Mora Sakha, Mora Pati, Mora Putra, Mora Sakha, Mora Pranapati. Ei bhave jay more kare shuddha bhakti. Kaviraj Goswami says, Krishna is saying, those who love me, spotless, Braja Prem, I am bound only in their heart. So Uddhava tried to convince Mother Yashoda that don't worry, Krishna lives in everything and everything lives in Krishna. But that couldn't convince them. So Vastu Asti. Point number 1, he who lives in the hearts of the devotees. Point number 2, that Krishna who lives in everything. Point number 3, that Krishna in whom everything lives. Point number 4, that Krishna who can make moving into non-moving, non-moving into moving. What is moving into non-moving? We explained about the residents of Vrindavan. What is non-moving into moving? Well, when Krishna places his lotus feet on the rocks melt. There's a place in Vrindavan called as Charan Pahadi, where Krishna placed his lotus feet on a rock and the rock melted. So this is the 4th point of Vastu Asti. And 5th point, the word Vastu means reality. We find the reference of that in the 2nd verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Dharma projita kaita votra paramo nirmat saranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam. What it means is the ultimate reality behind all causes. Sarva karana karanam. The cause of the cause of the cause of the cause of the cause is ultimately Krishna. So these 5 reasons have been given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in his commentary, that when Bilva Mangala Thakur here is saying Asti Vastu, there is a person, there is an object of love, there is a phenomena of love, there's a sweet ball, the sweetheart of Mother Yashoda in Vrindavan, that Krishna, that Vastu has these 5 definitions. Well, someone could say, maybe Bilva Mangala Thakur is referring to Brahman, the impersonal Brahman, because he's saying he who's present everywhere, etc. To clear that, Bilva Mangala Thakur says no. He uses the last word out there in the last line. He uses the word Kishore-akriti. Please, devotees, kindly focus on the last word of the last line. The word is Kishore-akriti. I hope everyone can see that. Hasta nyasta natapa vargam akilo daram Kishore-akriti. Now, what does the word Kishore-akriti mean? The word Kishore-akriti also has 4 meanings, according to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and other commentators. Point number 1, the word Kishore-akriti can break as Kishora. Kishora means someone who's very young, adolescent. You see, Krishna's pastimes are divided into 4 age groups. First is from appearance to the age of 5, and that's called as Kaumar Avastha or Balya Leela. Second section, going from the age of 6 to the age of 10, is called Pauganda. And you find the reference of that in Canto 10, Chapter 15, Text 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Tatascha Pauganda Vayashrito Vraje, Babhuvatasto Pashupala Sammatau, Gashcharayanto Sakhivi Samambratam, Vrindavanam Punyam Ativa Chakratu. So that is the second. From appearance to 5 is Balya Leela. From 6 to 10 is Pauganda. From 11 to 15 is Kishora, Kaishora Leela, adolescent. And then from 16, Krishna is Navayauvanam. He is ever youthful. Adyam Purana Purusham Navayauvanam cha. So the word Kishore-akriti breaks in Sanskrit. It's a combination of 2 words. You can break it as Kishora and Akriti. So we said 4 there to this word. The word Kishora means between the age of 11 and 15. And the word Akriti means form, which means this Vastu, Vastu Asti, this phenomenon, this personality in Vrindavan is not formless, but he has an Akriti. He has the form of youth. This is meaning number 1. Meaning number 2, the word Akriti has other meanings also. The word Akriti, means to make some, means minute, and Kriti means to make. So this Kishore, this young boy, is someone who can make Kriti, the pleasure of merging into Brahma Jyoti, which means insignificant. There are 3 kinds of pleasures described in Shastra. First kind of pleasure is called as Bhavananda, the pleasure of this world, which is sense gratification, which is not the factual pleasure. Second is Brahmananda, which means the pleasure of liberation, Sayujya Mukti. And the actual pleasure is the third one, which is called as Premananda or Paramananda, the actual pleasure which can be obtained through bhakti. Sandrananda Visheshatma Shri Krishna Akarshani Chasa. The actual spotless pleasure, spiritual pleasure. So that form of Krishna gives so much happiness that he can make the happiness of merging into Brahma Jyoti also, which means insignificant, and Kriti means to make. Sometimes when people talk about Brahma Jyoti and talk about Krishna, I like to give this example. That think about sweets. What are the sweets made up of? They're made out of sugar. So imagine you keep a bowl of sugar and you keep a jar of sweets. What do you think people are going to pick? They're still going to pick the sweets. You tell them, you convince them, well, actually, it is sugar. Try to take it. It's the sugar. But still, the sweet ball is so sweet and it's so tempting that the pleasure that we can get by eating the sweet is made insignificant. That no one wants the sugar. Everyone wants the sweet. So if the impersonalists say that actually the pleasure of entering Brahma Jyoti is like sugar, it's very sweet, then we say, you may feel it is like sweet, but this mood of serving Krishna in his personal feature is like eating the sweet, which can intoxicate one to such an extent that you would not even look at that bowl filled with sugar. It makes that sugar insignificant. The pleasure of the sweet. So that is, this could be Brahman, and that is Bhagavan realization, like that. So point number one about Kishore-akriti, he has the form of youth, adolescence. Point number two about Kishore-akriti, he can make the pleasure of entering Brahmajyoti as insignificant. Point number three, the word Kishore-akriti can also break as Kishora plus Akriti. Now it's an interesting rule in Sanskrit that when a smaller a is combined with a smaller a, then you get a bigger a, right? And that's the same for combining a smaller a with a bigger a. You still get a bigger a, right? So like, for example, you could combine Kishora, which ends in a smaller a, with Akriti. You still get Kishore-akriti when you put them together. Or you can say Kishora, which ends with a smaller a, and Akriti, which starts with a smaller a. So the two smaller a's combined, and you still get Kishore-akriti. So if you split Kishore-akriti as Kishora plus Akriti, the word Akriti is very interesting. It means someone who does not have material senses, which means he has spiritual senses. Third point. And fourth point, Kishore-akriti also means it's not just that the fact that he, it's interesting. There are some people who may look young, but they're actually pretty old. They're older than what they look. And on the other hand, you have people who are actually very young, but they look old with white hair and wrinkles on the face. They look older than what they actually are. So it's not just the fact that Krishna looks young. The fourth point is Krishna is always young and he also looks young. So these are the 4 points to Kishore-akriti. Let me really quick recap the 4 points for Kishore-akriti. Point number one, he has a young form. Point number two, he's young and has a young form. Point number three, he can make the pleasure of merging into Brahmajyoti and becoming one, quote unquote, oneness. That pleasure can be made insignificant by just looking at him. He beams out radiance and effulgence of happiness. And point number four, he is a young boy who has no material senses. He has transcendently sweet, spiritually potent senses. So that is the Vastu Asti that Bilva Mangala Thakur is speaking about. He says, I am going to Vrindavan to meet that Krishna who Kishore-akriti, and he is the Vastu. He is the phenomena I'm talking about. So I hope everyone is still there, awake and alive in the discussion. These 3 words were the toughest in the discussion. Now it's a very sweet flow, because once we establish the person who is being outlined by the poet, then it's easy to fill in the other details. So now let's discuss. So this Krishna, who is the Vastu, who's the person, who's the spiritual object, who's the phenomena, who's the personality, who has been described through the adjective Kishore-akriti in multiple ways. Now Bilva Mangala Thakur describes that Krishna in the last line as Hasta Nyasta Natapavargam Akhilodaram. I'll go word by word for this. First, Akhilodaram it splits as Akhila plus Udaram. Udaram means magnanimous, someone who's munificent, who has a big heart. And Akhila means completely. So he is completely magnanimous in comparison to whom? In comparison to the demigods, in comparison to the humans, in comparison to anyone, including his own Vishnumurtis, like Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narsimha, etc. In comparison to all of them, Krishna is Akhila Udaram. He is the most merciful. Why? Because the other incarnations can bring us to Vaikuntha. They can bring us to their lotus feet in the mood of servants. But Krishna is the only one who can pull us into the groves of Vrindavan, up to the mood of the maidservants of Srimati Radharani. Ramya Kajidupasana Vrajavadum Varghena Ya Kalpita. That's one praman for that. Another praman for that is Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunaya Avatiranaha Kalau Samarpaitum Unnata Ujjwala Rasamso Bhakti Shriyam. Again, coming from Vidagdha Madhav Natak of Rup Goswami, quoted by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Adilya, chapter 1, text 4. Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Krishna is the most merciful of all incarnations. Our Madan Gopal Prabhu was once telling me in Florida that Krishna is merciful. So is Ramchandra. But we are always so much absorbed speaking about the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we throw Krishna out of the bus and we throw Ram under the bus, and in the bus we travel with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, but that's not true. It's not that Mahaprabhu is the only merciful Lord. Ramchandra is merciful. Krishna is also very merciful. But we are so used to Mahaprabhu's mercy because of the presence of Radha Bhav that we oftentimes think Krishna or Sri Ram is not merciful. But here, Bilva Mangala Thakur says, Akhila Udaram. Krishna is most merciful. Akhila means completely, most, and Udaram means magnanimous. Now, what does the other line mean? Hasta Nyasta Nata Apavargam. Hasta Nyasta, which means to keep in one's hand. Hasta means hand, Nyasta means to hold. So Hasta Nyasta, to keep in one's hand. What is he keeping in his hand? Nata Apavargam. Very beautiful combination of words. Nata means surrendered devotees, and Apavargam means liberation. Now, I don't have time to explain, but Prabhupada very beautifully in the 7th canto explains the word Apavarga. He explains how life is going through 5 phases of hard work, foaming in the mouth, the sense of lack of fulfillment, fear of death, and death. And this is called Pavarga in Sanskrit. And repeated birth and death means Pavarga. But Apavarga means no more getting into the cycle of birth and death, which means liberation, or which could also mean bhakti, but very specifically liberation. So Hasta Nyasta means to hold in one's hand. What is Krishna holding in his hand? Nata Apavargam. He is holding Apavargam, which means mukti. He is holding liberation in his hand. For whom? Nata, for his surrendered souls. Just like we say in English, keep it handy. Keep something handy. Like this. If I feel thirsty, I can't leave the class and go somewhere to find for water. But to keep something really close to us so that when we want it, we get it, that in English is to keep it handy. So where is that hand coming in? It's coming from the Sanskrit usage. Hasta Nyasta Natapavargam. Krishna is so merciful that he wants to keep liberation in his hand for his surrendered souls, so that as soon as they come to him, he can offer it to them. He doesn't have to waste time searching for liberation. He can give it very quickly to those who are surrendered. Or another meaning of the word Natapavargam is that Krishna places Apavarga, which means bhakti in this case. He keeps bhakti, pure devotion, in the hands of Nata, his surrendered souls. Think about that. If you missed it, I'll repeat it quickly again. Hasta Nyasta Natapavargam. 2 meanings. 1 meaning, in his hand, he keeps liberation handy so that the surrendered souls come and he can give it out to them. Or reason number 2, or interpretation number 2, he keeps bhakti, pure devotion, in the hands of the surrendered souls. And when we go to Krishna, Krishna says, go to them, surrender to them. Those who come to me, they're not my devotees. Those who surrender to my servants, Madbhakta Puja Bhyadika. Gopi Bhartur Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Anudas. Bhrityasya Bhritya Itimam Smara Lokanath. So many references in Shastra that by serving the servant of Krishna, we actually prove to be Krishna's servant. Bhakta Bhakta Janapriyaha. Canto 9, chapter 4, Srimad Bhagavatam. So we finished the last line. Now let's go up. First line. Swastaruni Karagra Vigalat Kalpa Prasunaplutam. Swas means Swarga. If you're writing it down, it's easier. Swas means Swarga, which means heaven and beyond, including even Vaikuntha. Taruni means young woman, the young damsels, heavenly damsels, including Lakshmi. Swas means heaven, going up to Vaikuntha. And Taruni, you know the word Taruni. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhav Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhav Daite. Our Rup Goswami Pada has written Taruni. Tarun means a youthful boy, and Taruni means a youthful girl. So in Swarga, in heaven, up to Vaikuntha, Taruni, the heavenly damsels, including Lakshmi, what is happening? Karagra. Kara means hand. We may have heard this word Kara. Tava Kara Kamala Vare Nakamadbhuta Shringam. Right? Karagra. Kara means hand. And Agra means on the tip. So in the tip of the hands of the heavenly damsels, what is happening? Vigalat. Vigalat means to slip. Something is slipping from the fingertips of the heavenly damsels. What is that? Kalpa Prasuna. Kalpa is the short form for Kalpa Vriksha. Just like the actual name is Bhimsen in the Pandavas. But you call him Bhim. Short form. Similarly, Kalpa Vriksha means the desire tree, fulfilling tree, desire fulfilling tree. To that we short it down to Kalpa. Kalpa means a desire, wish fulfilling tree, desire fulfilling tree. And Prasuna means flowers. And Aplutam means to be completely covered. Sometimes we see in our ISKCON temples during Prabhupada Puja, we are all offering flowers, and Prabhupada's lotus feet gets covered completely. So Aplutam means to be covered. So what is Bilvamangala Thakur saying in the first line? He says Krishna is Swastaruni Karagra Vigalat Kalpa Prasuna Aplutam. He is covered completely, Aplutam, by the Prasuna, by the flowers coming from the Kalpa, which means Kalpa Vriksha trees, but it's not offered. Vigalat, it's slipping down from Karagra, the tip of the hands of the Swataruni, the heavenly damsels. Why is Bilvamangala Thakur not saying that they were offering it to Krishna? Why is he saying that Krishna is covered and drenched completely by the flowers slipping from the fingertips of the heavenly damsels? Why is he saying like that? Because they come to offer it to Krishna, but by looking at Krishna, by hearing his flute sound, by looking at the threefold bending form of Krishna, by hearing his words, by looking at his eyes going from the nose up to the ears, by looking at his bimba fruit, red, crimson red lips, by seeing the face paintings on his cheek, by seeing the earrings going back and forth, by seeing his Vaijayanti Mala, by seeing his posture, by seeing the movement of his eyebrows, they can't help themselves. They can't hold the flowers. They lose their composure. The fingers open up and the flowers slip from the fingertips of the gopis and the heavenly damsels. And what does Krishna do? He collects it from the ground and he accepts it on himself. Sometimes you see great souls, when children go to offer the garland to them, they can't even reach up to the great soul's neck. So what do the great souls do? They try to bend their head, and when it still doesn't reach, they take the garland themselves and they put it on behalf of the child. So that is what Krishna does. When the great heavenly damsels and Lakshmi and all of them, they come to offer the flowers to Krishna and it slips from their hand, Krishna takes it and he accepts it on their behalf. This is the sweetness of Krishna. We see this again and again. We see in the life of Raghunath Das Goswami, Mahaprabhu, he took it forcefully from his hand and he ate it. In the life of Shuklambar Brahmachari in Gaur Leela, Mahaprabhu by force he took it. So many times. So this is the first line. And now the second line and the third line we will discuss. Prastuta. We have finished Vastu in the second line. Prastuta. The word Prastuta has two meanings. Meaning number one, Prastuta, to present something, to show something, to manifest something. But at the same time, the word Prastuta means that which is famously glorified. Stuti. Stuti means glorification. And Prastuta means that which is greatly glorified, which is universally acclaimed, universally glorified. Prastuta. What is Prastuta? What is universally glorified? Venu Nada Lahari. Venu means the flute. Nada means the sound. And Lahari means the waves of that sound. Oftentimes it is said Krishna does not play the flute. He just takes the flute and places his lips on the flute. And as soon as he places the lips on his flute, the flute starts vibrating in happiness. And the flute goes, And Krishna looks at the flute and he thinks, I haven't even started playing you. So just by the power of Krishna's lips, the flute vibrates. So this is the harmonics, or the waves of the sound of the flute. So prastuta, that which is presented before the devotees, or that which is famously glorified, that venu, that flute, nada lahari, the waves of that sound, what does it do? It does three things. First thing that it does is nirvana nirvyakulam. So nirvana means transcendence, and nirvyakulam, this word has three meanings basically. You can break it in Sanskrit and bring three words. Of course, I don't have time now, so I'll just mention that in English. The word nirvyakulam in three meanings. First meaning, vibrations or unsteadiness. Why is the flute sound creating transcendental unsteadiness in Krishna? Because as Krishna is playing, there is his lips and his cheeks are moving as he's playing. So there is a transcendental unsteadiness of ecstasy coming through Krishna's lips, from his heart, through the lips into the holes of the flute, and then vibrating, completely polluting Vrindavan, polluting with love in such a way that it kidnaps the hearts of the Brajvasis. They never get it back. This is point number one. Point number two of the word nirvyakulam is exact opposite of what I previously mentioned. Point number one was to make something, or to make Krishna unsteady. But point number two is to make Krishna steady, which means when he plays the flute, the famously glorified flute, and he absorbs into the waves of the sound of the flute, he transcendently gets into the state of trance, remembering his devotees, that he's almost motionless in complete rapture. And meaning number three, nirvyakulam. The word kula means family, and a kula means to take one away from their family. So this flute is an expert thief. Just like Krishna takes away the hearts, this flute takes every Brajvasi away from his family. It takes away the Gopis from their father's house and the father-in-law's house. It kidnaps the heart of all the Brajvasis and takes them away from their family. This is nirvyakulam. So how beautifully Bilva Mangala Thakur has described. I just want to quickly get to the third line, and then we would have finished the whole verse. And after that, I want to do a quick recap so that we can refresh what we have studied. So the third line is such that it's in continuation with the flute. When Krishna plays the flute, what happens? Srasta, srasta. Now, please note that's not a printing mistake. One time, Prabhupada, it's a very beautiful story that Umapati Swami mentions in the memories of Srila Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada told me to make corrections if there were any corrections needed. So Prabhupada had written Shri Shri Radha Ras Bihari. So I cut one of the Shri and took it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada read it as Shri Radha Ras Bihari. And Prabhupada said, where is the other Shri? So Umapati Swami said, oh, Prabhupada, I thought that was a printing mistake. There was a mistake that you said 2 times, you said Shri. I thought that wasn't needed, so I cut one out. So Prabhupada said, I want you to correct me when I speak in your language, which is English. But you don't correct me when I speak in my language, which is Sanskrit. If I say Shri Shri Radha Ras Bihari on the basis of devotion, 1 Shri for Radha and 1 Shri for Ras Bihari, that is not a printing mistake. But when I speak something in English, then you can make some changes. So Srasta Srasta here is not printing mistake. Srasta Srasta means to loosen up. Just like we say, slowly, slowly. You know, in other languages, colloquial languages also, in Hindi we say dhire dhire, which means just slow down, right? For emphasis of a certain emotion. So srasta srasta means to slip, to loosen. And niruddha means to hold up, to stop from slipping. And nidi means clothes. And vilasat means very beautiful. And gopi means the gopis of Vrindavan. And sahasra means thousands. And avrita means to cover, to surround. So when Krishna plays the flute, he increases the breathing, the inhalation and exhalation of all the gopas and the gopis. So what happens? Hearing the flute sound and looking at Krishna, there is a competition between the eyes and the ears. The ears say, we want to hear the flute more. And the eyes say, no, we want to see him more. And in this competition, there's heavy breathing in happiness and in ecstasy. And when there is heavy breathing, your clothes loosen up. Your waistcloth and your upper cloth loosens up. So the hair, the clothes, they all loosen up, listening to Krishna's flute sound and looking at his form. And srasta, the hair starts to loosen, the flowers are falling, the clothes are almost to fall, and the gopis are trying to hold with one hand. And niruddha, if they try to adjust that, then what happens? They can look at Krishna. And when they look at Krishna, they're absorbed and the clothes are slipping. And in this way, Bilvamangal Thakur says, Krishna has not just stolen the hearts, the lives, he's in fact even stealing the clothes. He's stealing everything from everyone in Vrindavan. So srasta niruddha nivi vilasat gopi sahasrabritam. He's surrounded by thousands and thousands of gopas and gopis who are in a state of complete surrender. Even if their clothes are slipping, they won't take their eye off Krishna's form and ears of Krishna's flute sound. So that is the completion. That is the Vastu Asti in Vrindavan. Bilvamangal Thakur says, that is the substance that I'm looking to see. I'm going to find who is Kishore-akriti. So dear devotees, it's about 5 minutes to 9. I want to, in a minute or two, really quickly recap this whole verse. And then I want to open the floor for any discussions, questions, or corrections. So let's quickly begin. We started off with Bilvamangala Thakur answering this question, why he's going to Vrindavan. He's saying, Vastu Asti. In Vrindavan, there is a person. Who is that person? Kishore-akriti. He's young and youthful. He can make the pleasures of this world insignificant, and he has a transcendental, beautiful form. How is he? Hasta Nyasta Natapa Vargam Akilodaram. Akilodaram. He's supremely magnanimous and munificent, and Hasta Nyasta Natapa Vargam. Point number 1, he has placed liberation in his hands for his pure devotees to keep it handy. Or point number 2, he has kept pure devotion in the hands of his surrendered devotees to distribute into the world. First line, Swastaruni Karagra Vigalat Kalpa Prasuna Plutam. When the heavenly damsels of Swa, which means Swarga, Karagra Vigalat, the tips of their hands, there is flower from the Kalpavriksha trees, wish-fulfilling trees, slipping down because they are in trance looking at Krishna and hearing flute sound. Then Krishna himself collects all those flowers from the ground and he accepts and he covers himself with those flowers. So they are not even able to hold composure to offer it to Krishna. It all slips from their hand. Line number 2, Prastuta Venu Nada Lahari Nirvana Nirvyakulam. When Krishna presents Prastuta Venu, he presents the flute, which is supremely glorified. By the way, this flute is a very interesting person. This flute is even higher than Brahma. Why? Because for Brahma, Krishna spoke into Brahma's ear only once while initiating him. But Krishna speaks into the ear of the flute every day. Point number 2, Brahma sits on a lotus in Brahmalok, but this flute sits on the lotus palms of Krishna. So the flute is higher. So Prastuta Venu, this presented supremely glorious flute, Nada Lahari, the waves of the sound, what do? Nirvana. They create transcendence. And 3 points. Nirvyakulam. They make Krishna unsteady because of his playing. Yet at the same time, those effects make him steady in complete remembrance and trance and rapture, remembering the qualities of his devotees. And point number 3, it takes the devotees away from their kula, which means families. Last line for today, as Krishna plays this flute, srasta, the clothes and the hair of the gopas and the gopis, very specifically the gopis, it loosens out, and Krishna, as he smiles, as he attracts everyone playing the flute, his form is so attractive that they look at the form and they try to hold, but when they try to tuck the clothes in and manage the hair, they can't look at him. But when they look at him, they're so absorbed that the hair and the clothes are slipping. But when they focus on the hair and the clothes, then they can see him and forget it. Forget the clothes and forget the hair. They prioritize Krishna's form and Krishna's beauty and Krishna's flute. So Niruddha, they try to hold for some time, but finally the hair gets, it's not properly made. So Vilasat, in this way, beautiful gopis in Sahasra and thousands, Avritam, they surround that Krishna. Bilva Mangala Thakur starts Krishna Karanamrit with this verse to say, I am going to Vrindavan to fall at the feet of that Krishna who is the Vastu, who is Kishore-akriti. who is in his youthful form. This book is rightly called as the Krishna Karanamrita because these 112 verses, when chanted by the devotees, they are Amrita. They are like nectar to our ears because they're related to Krishna. But more importantly, they are nectar even to Krishna's Karana. Karana means ears. Even for Krishna's own ears, these glorifications are nectarian. So thank you everyone for kindly joining in and participating in this discussion. I tried my bit to elaborate on this verse. I hope this whets your appetite to welcome Krishna in the core of your heart before Janmashtami. I want to offer my obeisances to all the senior Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis present. Shami Krishi Prabhu is on the call, and of course Maharaj is on the call, and so many other wonderful devotees. So Yashoda Dulal Prabhu, the call is back to you. Just in case, if you want to take, open the floor for a few questions or discussions or some corrections by my superiors. It'll be so wonderful to hear from my superiors and learn more on this discussion. So Yashoda Dulal Prabhu, it's all yours.
Thank you. That was amazing. I think you could have, if we had another 2 or 3 hours, you could have probably spent 2 or 3 more hours on the first line itself. What to speak of the whole verse. That was really powerful. Jayadvaita Swami put in the chat box, Maduram Maduram. That was his comment. So we have a couple of hands raised, but I'm going to call on a devotee we don't normally hear from or does not ask questions usually on this call. Sumit Utekar, Prabhu, do you want to ask a question? Your hands were raised. Your hand was raised before.
It was mistakenly hand raised.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. So Vijay Krishna Prabhu, you have the floor. Please ask your question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear Prabhu.
Yes, Amarendra Das Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances over to Srila Prabhupada. I'm calling from Portugal. I think you would like to know. My question is a very short question due to our limited time, and it is as follows. Why is it that it is so difficult to find a pure devotee in the material world?
Why is it difficult to find a pure devotee in the material world?
Yes, that is my question, please.
When Srila Prabhupada came to the West, one elderly woman asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, why are you so late? Why did you come so late? And Prabhupada said, why were you so late? And she started crying. So what that means is, when we are ready, Krishna sends Sri Guru. When we delay our sincerity, when we delay the intensity of our search, then we don't find, because we really don't want to find. We want to be happy in this world with our misconceptions. We want to be happy in this world with those who want to keep us happy in this world. But seldom are those who want to escape and swim the back current. Instead of going downstream, they desire to go upstream. And when they search out and they learn, they call out to Krishna, only then Krishna gives pure sadhus. It's not that there is a lack of sadhus in this world. There are sadhus in this world, but to see them, we must have the grace of Krishna. When we are not ready and when we don't want to find them, Krishna will not display those sadhus in the realm of our lives, because we never cast pearls in front of swine. So when we have the money to buy those pearls, or at least we're interested in seeing those pearls, then those pearls will be displayed. That doesn't, just because we don't see them, doesn't mean there is a lack of sadhus in this world. It's just that we're not intensely finding them enough. When we sincerely seek, Krishna will empower, and then we will see, oh, how is it that I was sleeping for such a long time? Just like we were mentioning last night, Balaramji teaches us the same principle. For one whole year, Krishna was playing as the calves, Krishna was playing as the cowherd boys. But Balaram did not know. But after 1 year, he started scratching his head. And when 1/4 of the Yoga Maya was taken away, Balaram started thinking, how is it that all the fathers have the same love for their sons as much as they have for Krishna. And how is it that the cows are rejecting their newly born calves for the older ones? There is something interesting here. Then he started asking more and more and more, and then finally he got to know that it was Krishna. So Balaram is teaching us as Guru Tattva that Krishna could be playing around in the form of calves, and Krishna could be playing around in the form of the cowherd boys. But when we are under the curtain, Maya Jhavanika Channam, Na Lakshase Mudadrisho Nato Natya Daro Yata, Queen Kunti. When we are covered by the veil of Yoga Maya, although they are present around, we can see. But when we pray, the curtain is removed, then we can see sadhus around. But Bhavapa Vargo, Brahmato Yada Bhaved, Bhagavatam describes only those who are very close to the point of liberation will be handed in the association of sadhus. So if we desire, then we will deserve, otherwise no.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your wonderful and very merciful answer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Amarendra Prabhu. Samarpan Gopa Prabhu put on the chat, grateful for your sweet, deep, and profound edutainment, education plus entertainment. Prabhu, dandavats.
I just want to mention that I heard many portions of this Hari Katha from my senior god brother, His Holiness Vrindavan Chandra Maharaj. And I also heard portions of that from my Guru Maharaj. And of course, some of them from the purports of Srila Prabhupada. So whatever is coming in the chat, I will be a thief if I smile and nod my head to any of them, because I am simply the male man carrying it, but it's actually the current coming from above. So I will pass this to them.
Yes, there is a request. So a couple of other devotees, Radhika Priya and Sonam, also put wonderful comments, and thank you. There's a request if we can have a couple of minutes of your sweet singing, if possible, and then we'll end in literally just 2 minutes clip, then we can end.
There's some kid who's already started to cry. No, no more. Amarendra, just stop. Okay.
Is that okay? And then you will close it out after a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Shyam Sundar, Radha Shyama Sundar Radhe. Jaya Radha Shyama Sundar, Radha Shyama Sundar Radhe. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada Nitai, Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Amarendra Prabhu. This was sweet, sweet, sweet nectar. We could listen to you. I got some private text messages also saying I could listen to him forever. So please continue to come onto this Sangha, and I know you speak regularly on various Sanghas, and continue to enliven us with your nectarian Krishna Katha.
I feel very honored and privileged to be here. Thank you, Srila Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, for your auspicious presence and for your blessings. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for kindly joining in. Thank you, dear Yashoda Dulal Prabhu, for hosting this evening. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So before we go, we will I will make a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll open up the microphone for people to say Haribol to Amarendra Prabhu. So first up, I want to share my screen and talk about what's coming up on this Sangha. So on this Sangha, US time 8 p.m., US Eastern time 8 p.m., Sunday to Friday, with no Saturday class here. We have 6 days a week Katha, and for people in India and Sydney, it is Monday to Saturday, 5:30 in the morning India time, 10 a.m. Sydney time. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami currently doing discussions on Canto 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we had Amarendra Prabhu, and on Thursday evening, US time, we will have Madhumati Devi. She is from Alachua. She's the wife of Shesha Prabhu. She will be speaking about a glimpse into the heart of a devotee. And on Sunday, we will have Prabhupada Meditations and Memories by Yogeshwar Prabhu, who is a Prabhupada disciple, senior disciple, who's had a lot of association with Srila Prabhupada, and who's also written a most wonderful book called Swami in a Strange Land. So he will be giving us some wonderful memories and meditations as we approach Janmashtami and Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja next week. And on Saturday of this week, I don't have a poster or something to show you. On Saturday of this week, between 9:30 and 11:30 a.m., at the site of the new temple in Parsippany, New Jersey, will be the foundation laying ceremony. Ananta Shesha will be placed in the ground, and then the work of building the foundation will be started. Those of you who are local to New Jersey and have taken some of those little notebooks to write the Mahamantra in, you can come to the ceremony, and those notebooks will be placed in the ground right where the deities are going to be. And you can also attend that ceremony. That's 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. on Saturday. Also on Saturday at 9 a.m. is the 6-part series with Sachinandan Swami that the Bhakti Center is hosting, and then 4 other temples are hosting along with the Bhakti Center. And you can find links for that. We'll show it again on this Zoom Sangha a couple of times more before Saturday. You can also find it on my Facebook or Instagram. And that's 9 a.m. with Sachinandan Swami. Part 5 will be this Saturday. So with that, I will open up the Sangha for devotees to say Hare Krishna to Amarendra Prabhu. Thank you very much, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Did you want to say Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Amarendra Prabhu. So much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Amarendra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Oh, Haribo. Antaryami Prabhu is also here.
Yeah, he is resting.
Haribo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Amarendra Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shami Krishi Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Pranam to you. Very wonderful.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Nice to see you.
Thank you for everything.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Amarendra Das Prabhu, wonderful lecture. Thank you very much. All glories to your service. Lots of love from Portugal.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.